What's up, guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Void Horror Podcast. My name is Alex, and today we're going to be talking about the seventh film in the Paranormal Activity franchise called Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. Spoiler free. Let's get into it. So, Paranormal Activity is a franchise that I actually, for the most part, enjoy more than I dislike. There are a couple of films in this franchise that are a little shaky, but for the most part, I actually enjoy. In fact, I'm one of the people that actually likes the marked ones, which a lot of people are not very fond of, and I actually kind of like it. I think it's fun. Now, I've never seen the Tokyo Night, the Paranormal Activity 2 sort of side story that they had. If anybody's seen that, tell me. I would love to hear what you think of it. Maybe I'll try to track it down and do a review of it. But I've been moderately excited about seeing a new Paranormal Activity movie because, one, I like found footage for the most part, even though this is a very flawed subgenre in the horror films, but still very creative in some ways. And we're seeing some films that are blowing people out of the fucking water with what they're doing. This is not one of those films. In fact, it is kind of We got William Eubank, who's returning to the director's chair. He is the director of the movie Underwater, which had one of the bigger surprises of the last year that I enjoyed. I thought it was a solid 8 or an 8.5 out of 10 movie. He has the director chops to be able to do this. And Christopher Landon returns as one of the writers for the film. He has done a lot of work with Blumhouse as far as like Freaky. He did Happy Death Day 1 and 2, and he also did Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. Now, I enjoy most of both of these directors' work. I think they're both talented individuals, but for this particular movie, it did not work for me. I'm sorry, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it better than me. I mean, there's always that. We're all different and we all enjoy different things. But what is Paranormal Activity Next of Kin? Well, it is about a woman by the name of Margot who has a team of 2 other guys that are a documentary crew that follow her along to an Amish community. She's visiting this Amish community because she took a DNA test and found out that she has other family that she is related to. She was adopted when she was a young kid. Her mother dropped her off at a hospital, and that was that. And she wanted to kind of solve and fill in the mystery of that and find some of her family to kind of reunite with them. And she brings this crew with herself to document the process. And in doing so, she finds out that things aren't exactly as they seem, and they become far more sinister. How many times do we hear that in a fucking, synopsis? And it turns out to be just a little too sinister. Anyway. So what did I think of this film? I mean, first off, I was expecting a lot more from this film. I was open to it to be just mediocre and just kind of give me a couple of fun scares. I really wasn't expecting that much from the franchise. After Ghost Dimension, I pretty much was like, oh God, yeah, this is not where the franchise should go at all. That movie kind of pissed me off, actually, considering the wealth of talent and ideas and camera tricks and things that we got from the entire franchise. That was the biggest step down. And since then, we haven't seen anything from Paranormal Activity for 6 years. So I thought, well, hey, maybe, this one will come back. I'm happy to at least tell you that it is better than the Ghost Dimension. But not by much, guys. It really is unfortunate. I'm always rooting for these movies. I'm always hoping that these are going to be better than they always are. And, being a fan of the franchise in some regard, me and my girlfriend like to watch these movies all the time. And we really get a lot of enjoyment out of it and sort of the lore that they have that attach all these movies together, which is kind of a feat. It reminds me of Saw in some ways, which gets kind of ridiculous of how everything's tied together, but it still does it. And that's kind of like a fun little Easter egg for those who have been following the franchise along the way. This movie that I'm aware of does not connect to the other ones unless I missed something and they had this Easter egg in Ghost Dimension that I really wasn't fond of. Maybe you guys can tell me in the comment section down below. Immediately when I started to watch this movie, I realized that the acting was going to be a little bit more on the acting side. You know, typically when we watch some of these found footage movies, you get like this mix of like acting with like, you know, kind of authentic shit. So it makes it seem like it's not all written out. This felt very written out, and the acting was very much like that. Like, you know, they'd walk into a room and it would just kind of feel unnatural and not as authentic as you would hope. I didn't really care. I just knew that it wasn't going to be like the first few films that we saw. It was going to be in the latter half of all the franchise that we saw these movies. So I knew what to expect kind of from there. Going to this Amish community, you would think would give you sort of this Midsommar kind of feel. It is anything but. There is very little to do with some of the family that's like at all scary. There's a few things that they do in the movie that just kind of are thrown in and packed together in this movie that I really just don't think they would have mattered if these scenes were in it or not. And it takes a long while for you to get to those parts anyway that really make a difference. I mean, really, you're looking forward to the third act in this movie, which is unlike a lot of the Paranormal Activity movies that we've seen. We've always seen something crazy happen in the beginning, and then like it gets weird here, and there's this thick atmosphere, and you know, you get uncomfortable and you're waiting for things to pop, and the music and the humming that Paranormal Activity always gives you. It's there, but it just doesn't pay off, and the atmosphere is not very good. Like, I would think that, you know, there would be some really good opportunities to kind of mess with the family and make them do things that are kind of like uncomfortable that they try to do in this movie, but it just kind of feels like they're kind of, let's get through it, unfortunately. By the third act, I was kind of disappointed with what I had already seen, but then they give us this nugget of like cool stuff that they, in this new area that we had not seen before. And I'm trying to dance around the, you know, spoilers here so that I don't ruin anything for you guys. But let's just say I was like, okay, that's an interesting idea. What if this thing was in this area that we haven't seen before? That makes it kind of interesting. Where are they going to go with this? And then they show you and reveal it, and at first I was like really excited because I thought it was more than what I've seen before. But no, it's the same shambly bullshit that you would normally see, a little bit more physical in the Paranormal Activity franchise altogether, but typical. And that really kind of fucked me up and kind of disappointed me heavily. You're going to get a lot of people that have watched this franchise that are going to be very disappointed with this film, and I would not be surprised if they give it a 1 out of 10 just out of like disappointment alone. For me, I am a little bit more, you know, trying to cherry pick some of the good stuff, but it is extremely average. There was another thing, like I was like, okay, so you failed me here. I thought you were going to do this one thing and it was going to be this thing, and it wasn't. And yeah, I'm not trying to say that the movie has to be what I picture, but the way they were leading it, and then to kind of not make a grandiose sort of thing that's happening, if it doesn't happen, it just kind of is a letdown. It's just a disappointment. Like, you've seen it before, so you got to do something new and different. I have seen short films do more with that reveal than this entire movie. Think about that for a second. Later on, when the final part of the third act comes around and everything's going haywire, I was like, okay, I'm going to give this one last chance. If it does this one thing, then I'll be happy. But it didn't even really do that well. All things break loose, and it just kind of does it. And it almost kind of felt a little hokey. Like it needed to be edited better, or there needed to be more up-close shots of all these things that are occurring in this time. And they failed desperately at it, unfortunately. And it really sucks because I like everyone that's involved in this. You know, the actors, they did okay. They did what they were supposed to do. One of the characters was just kind of annoying a little bit. He kind of was likable by a certain part in the movie, and you kind of are rooting for him a little bit, but everybody else is just there, and it just felt unnatural and didn't go to the places that I was hoping. I think this is going to be a movie that I wouldn't personally pay the $5.99 or the $4.99 to rent on Paramount Plus. You can rent it on their service by just subscribing to their service right now, which it's out today, so you can do that right now if you want to check it out. And you're like, fuck you, I don't care what you say. Fuck you, I don't care what you tell me. Ain't no Rage Against the Machine, but I'm raging against this machine. Yeah, this one's like a 5 out of 10, guys. Like, I would have to say that it is just very disappointing in a lot of ways, and I'm sure I'm going to be on the higher end of scoring this. Another watch of it might even yield a lower score for me, to be honest with you. That's kind of how I'm feeling about it. Is it okay if you're just looking for something to watch and you're not really into the franchise? Probably, but it's still kind of disappointing. And Paranormal Activity was taking you places throughout the franchise that you hadn't seen. So this is really kind of a disappointment. Sorry to say. But I would love to hear what you guys think. Did you check it out? What did you think of it? Did you enjoy it a lot more than I'm saying? Am I being too harsh on it? I mean, we're all different. We all have different opinions. I'm always rooting for these movies, guys. And if it just doesn't tickle my fancy, hopefully it'll tickle yours. I don't know. Wherever your fancy is, hopefully down there. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the like, the subscribe button, and fucking stab the shit out of the bell so that you know when I got a new video coming out. I know I'm behind on the Creep Show, guys. They're just gonna have to wait. So I wanted to get this up for you at least. And if you haven't already, please check out the new interview with Ryan Prowse from another found footage anthology called VHS 94. Awesome director. His segment was one of my favorites, and it was a really fun discussion to sit down with him. So other than that, thank you guys so much for stopping by, and as always, long live the void.